The Federal Reserve is getting into crypto. They're not playing around. They see everyone else benefiting from these digital currencies. And the Fed, the Central Bank of the United States, they want in, and they want in bad. They released a 35-page discussion paper on Thursday of this week. This marks the Fed's most significant action as they dive deeper into digital assets. Now, the Federal Reserve is opening the debate. Should they create a digital dollar or should they not? The Fed is not going to proceed with creating a central bank digital currency yet because they want support from both the White House and Congress. We got a quote here from the Federal Reserve. They said the introduction of a CBDC would represent a highly significant innovation in American money. I disagree. I don't think it would be a significant innovation because it's already been created. There's already $160+ billion that has flowed into stablecoins. We don't need the government to create stablecoins. The private sector already did it. It works, and it has been adopted by the market. In fact, my belief is that if the Federal Reserve or any of the politicians and government organizations were to step in and create a central bank digital currency, it would not lead to innovation. Actually, it would just be a watered-down, poorer version of what has already been created. Instead, what it would lead to is it would lead to massive financial surveillance. But the benefits of CBDCs, according to the Federal Reserve, is that it ensures the dollar remains the preeminent currency in the international financial system. I do agree with that, but we don't need the Fed to do it. It will increase financial inclusion, potentially. It'll improve cross-border payments, maybe. And it'll ease the dollar's use in new technology, maybe. And so ultimately, there are benefits to the digital currencies or to stablecoins. But why do they need to be central bank digital currencies? Well, there's negative side effects. They can drain deposits from traditional banking. They can make runs on financial firms more likely. Oh, wait, you mean it'd be easier for people to be able to get access to their own money? Privacy. Government could have a direct view into individual citizens' transactions, and infrastructure could be a tempting target for hackers. Now, ultimately, my biggest concern with central bank digital currencies is that lack of privacy, that financial surveillance that's drastically increased. Where literally right now, if a politician or a government organization wants to see into my bank account or John's or Joe's or anybody else, they got to go to court. They got to get a subpoena. They got to say, hey, we need to actually go and get a warrant to be able to go in and look inside that bank account. Now, of course, are the courts really that stringent? Maybe not. But still, there is a check and balance. There is some level of protection, some level of financial privacy. But if all of a sudden everyone was using central bank digital currencies on a ledger that the government controlled, they could see inside your bank account. They could see who you transacted with, how much, when, and they could use it for whatever purposes they want. One of the worst fears is that this type of system would then be the creation of a social credit score, where quite literally they could say things like they do already say in China. You know what? You're not allowed to get on the subway. You have to walk. You've been a bad boy. Or instead, they might say, you know what? You can't actually spend your money on that item. Why? It's because you haven't done the things you're supposed to do. Now, this isn't some crazy idea. If you think about it, the government already does this to some degree. They give out EBT cards and they tell people if you don't use it by a certain time period, the money expires. And oh, by the way, it's for food, but only the type of food that we approve. You can't actually use it to buy prepared food. You got to be able to buy it at things at the grocery store. And so ultimately, if the technology ends up becoming pervasive enough, do not be surprised if the government tries to implement very similar rules to what they already have for certain portions of our population on a grander scale. Now, the United States is behind. There's now 23 central bank digital currencies that have either been launched or are in pilot. The U.S., we got a 35-page paper, but we ain't made no progress yet. And obviously, the private companies have over $160 billion of capital inflows to those stablecoins in the private market. And so ultimately, what I do believe is that digitizing the U.S. dollar is a great idea. I think it'll drive accessibility and adoption of the dollar on a global stage. We should be rushing to do this. You can check the receipts. Back in 2018 and 2019, I was literally on national television saying one of the most important things in the United States economy right now is that we have to digitize the dollar. We have to get in the hands of every single person that wants U.S. dollars around the world. This will extend the dominance of the U.S. dollar on the global system. Nobody listened. And of course, I'll just keep saying the same thing I've been saying for a long time now. But the downside is we got to make sure that the government doesn't now get higher degrees of financial surveillance capabilities. And I think that actually the middle ground is just use the ones that have already been created. $160 billion worth of adoption on its way to trillions, as long as nobody steps in and screws it up.